Hi, everybody. We're so glad you're joining us tonight, and we're excited to hear Kim talk about her book. So, our mission, Helping Parents Heal, is a nonprofit organization dedicated to assisting parents whose children have passed. Through support and resources offered, we aspire to help individuals become shining light parents, meaning a shift from a state of emotional heaviness to one of hopefulness and greater peace of mind. HPH goes a step beyond other groups by allowing the open discussion of spiritual experiences and afterlife evidence in a non-dogmatic way. HPH affiliate groups welcome everyone, regardless of religious or non-religious background, and encourage open dialogue. Attendance at this meeting is voluntary. We hope that participants will learn from and share with each other. Discussions here are confidential and not designed to replace traditional therapy or spiritual counseling. Helping Parents Heal offers a wide variety of speakers, allowing parents to learn about many possible ways to heal. This includes presenters covering progressive topics such as afterlife evidence and connecting with children who have passed. The views expressed by our guest speakers may or may not reflect the opinions of Helping Parents Heal leaders and members. So we ask that you take from their presentations whatever may benefit you personally. Thank you and welcome. Carol?
Thank you, Lynn. That was great. Well, let me read about a little bit about Kim. I'm read her bio for you all. Kim shares her personal transformation during this 3-year search for the remains of her teenage son. The messages from across the veil and synchronicities helped her heal, transform, and aided the search and miraculous find. Kim is the author of the 5-time award-winning book, Where Yellow Flowers Bloom, a true story of hope through unimaginable loss. She has been interviewed on Ellen TV, featured in Rob Lowe's documentary, Madness in the Hills, and featured in Reebok Founder, Joe Foster's new book, How to Survive and Thrive. Prior, she was an executive in the medical device business sector. She and her daughter live in Santa Barbara with their 2 dogs. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you very much. It's really nice to be here.
Well, we are so happy to have you. Why don't you start? Kim also has her son. She's a shining light parent, as well as her husband on the other side of the veil. So why don't you start by maybe telling us a little bit about what happened on that day, and just to familiarize everybody with your story.
Sure. So it'll be 7 years in January. In December in Santa Barbara, there was a massive wildfire called the Thomas Fire. And in Santa Barbara, there's hills, then there's a little bit of the town, and then there's a Pacific Ocean. So it's really where the mountains meet the sea. And the wildfire had taken out all the foliage of the mountains. And then came January, and in January in Santa Barbara comes rains. But this was an unusual rainy event where it was torrential. So we had a mountain overlooking the town with big boulders sitting precariously on the hillside, and then forecasted very heavy rain. And so we had evacuated as they indicated for the Thomas Fire. And then we were always watching our Aware and Beware and the news of, do we need to evacuate for upcoming rain? And we weren't up in the hills. We were down more in the village, and we weren't in mandatory evacuation. We had sandbags, everything. I even had a hotel booked in case it got bad, had the cars staged. I had my son, get his car in, and then we did the sandbags. We parked our cars across in the driveway. And what happened was we awoke at about 3 a.m. on January 9th, and it was torrential rain coming down. And we got up. My husband went to look around the house to see how it was handling the water. And we told the kids, get dressed, we're getting out of here. And so they ran to their rooms. I threw on my clothes from the day before. And then all of a sudden it's pitch black, right? It's 3 a.m. And all of a sudden there was this big boom, and you look out and the sky went from a pitch black to an eerie, almost nuclear bomb yellow. And what we didn't know was a massive gas explosion. So massive water coming down, then gas explosion. And my husband's like, the garage is taking on water. And so we're trying to get out. He he was, in his rain gear, and he opened the front door and slammed it right away, and he yelled, "Back door now." And so he blew past me through the living room toward the back door where the pool was. And the kids were in their room getting their clothes on, and my hand got stuck in the door, and it was a glass door, and he was on the other side of the door saying, "Get out, get out, get out." And when I turned around to the front door, mud was roaring through the house, and as the Aware and Beware blast came on my phone saying, "Get to high ground," the mud was at my waist. My hand was stuck in the door, and I watched my Irish setter dog at my feet get washed over with mud and died. And Dave was yelling, "Get out, get out." And then all of a sudden Dave washed away, and I was in the mud. It was like a jacuzzi, but it was like a trash compactor, because granite, walls, brick, fireplace, everything's compacting me under the mud. And I thought I was going to die. And I'm a type A, very type A person, but I have faith, and I said, "God, if you want me to die right now, I will." And I ragdolled, and I think ragdolling helped me survive it. And then I woke up on a debris pile. It was probably 5 hours later. I thought I might be in my backyard, but I was at an angle, a 30-degree angle, with my feet up here and my head down here. And I was dazed. I'd probably been knocked out. I kind of thought I was in my backyard. I ended up being in a intersection about 2 football fields away from my home, of where my home was. And I yelled for help, but it was like a war zone. There was nothing there. So I just tried to, and I was trapped. I was severely injured. My leg was trapped. I thought my hip was broken. I had big lacerations. And so a couple hours later, I think I stretched to open my eyes, and I saw a red and white light, and I said, "Oh, that must be like an ambulance," but it wasn't spinning. But I yelled for help. I said, "Help, help, help." And I heard someone clomp, clomp, clomp. And he goes, "This is Garrett. I'm coming to get you." And he's like, "Where was your house?" And that was stunning for me. Like, what are you talking about? And he goes, "Who was in the house?" I said, "My 49-year-old husband, Dave, my 17-year-old son, Jack, my 14-year-old daughter, Lauren, my 7-year-old Irish setter dog, Chester." And they said, where was your house?" And this was phenomenal. I kind of thought I was in my backyard, but I wasn't. But I took my arm and I went like this, and I pointed to a pile in the distance that 2 firefighters went to look. And that's where my daughter was buried alive under 20 feet of mud. And there were angels, I'm sure, someone helping me point, because it was 30 square miles of devastation. 62 houses were destroyed, 152 damaged, right? And cars were up in trees, piles everywhere. And I pointed, without knowing, straight to the pile where she was buried alive, a football field from our house. So I got to the
Isn't that
hospital,
amazing?
and had to learn to walk again. Found out that my husband had passed. Then I heard, I was there, and I got to the hospital 8:30 in the morning, and I remember a sliding door opening. They were prepping me for surgery, and they said, "Do you have a daughter named Lauren?" And I said, "Yes." And they said, "They just rescued her." And my shoulders relaxed, and I said, "When are they going to find Dave and Jack?" Right. So the sad part was 23 people died that night. Half of them were kids. And I found out about Dave, but my son, Jack, 17, and a beautiful baby girl, Lydia, 2, they couldn't find their bodies. And so I was in the hospital, not getting that full closure. It was just like, okay, well, there's another day going by. There's another day. So you start doing the math. He's not alive, right? So it was pretty horrific. And yeah, it was a pretty dark time, pretty traumatizing time. And then once I got out of the rehabilitation hospital to learn to walk again, it was about a month later. The sheriff's team had pretty much all but stopped on Super Bowl Sunday looking for these 2 kids. And you got to imagine, homeowners are hauling stuff away. millions and millions of truckload stuff's being scooped off the freeway and hauled away. And you can imagine they're not looking as much as you want them to look. So I got involved and I led the search for 3 years because I felt in my heart when the sheriff said, hey, you got to think he went to the ocean. I knew in my heart of hearts, he did not go to the ocean. I felt he was in the mud somewhere, and I was not going to let him be in a debris pile with twisted up chain link fence or paint thinner from someone's garage. And so I led a search for 3 years, and like Suzanne Giesman was helping me with some clues, and I used a lot of different modalities to do that.
Yes, and I remember reading that in the book, and it is raw and gives a lot of details, and you feel your pain for sure. And your daughter, I know, I always say we leave when we've finished what we came to do, because your daughter was buried under 20 feet of mud for 6 hours, and yet she survived. And that's
she had a pocket of air the size of half a volleyball.
Exactly. And that's what I always tell parents is, hey, once we finish what we come to do, then we go home, and they're way better off than we are. I always say they're way more alive than we are. But you had commented in the book that you had this strong desire to get a family portrait right before this occurred. And you even went back and called the photographer to get your dog in when you had this. So I always believe that our soul, we know it's that intuition. So do you want to talk a little bit about all the things that transpired in addition to that family portrait? And of course, I love that you pointed and knew where Lauren was. I mean, that's, again, like you said, that's the angels, our kids, our guides, they are letting you know. But do you want to talk about the mediums that helped and those? Well, before we even talk about the mediums, go ahead and just tell us those things with your intuition and what you found later. You discovered that your husband had said, and maybe Jack. I believe I read something about Jack as well that just led you to believe that they knew.
Yeah. So it was interesting. It was interesting. My husband and I had big, busy careers, and we'd forgotten to do family photos for a couple times, and I just had this really strong pull, like, we need a family portrait done. So I'd called, and this was done probably 4 weeks before the tragedy, 5 weeks before the tragedy. And interestingly enough, where the picture was taken is right in the area where we're looking for Jack's remains. It was fascinating. It was fascinating that I said, take me back to, because it was all changed, the topography, but take us back to where you took that picture. And I'm like, oh my God, I cannot believe you're showing me this area. It was fascinating. So I really wanted the family picture. And then I got home, and, at Christmas time, you're spending way too much money, and you're just like, rein it in, and you don't want to spend more. But I'm like, I really need pictures of my Irish setter. He was my dog, and he was, I just wanted professional pictures. So I call and get those. And I think, and then there's another thing that I could just tell I had started to become quite an anxious person. And my husband noticed it in the car, where, that handle you can hold on to, and my husband would kind of be insulted when he's driving. And I'm like this. What was so fascinating is after their deaths, a lot of that went away. I think my soul was reverberating with, there's going to be something really happening here. And I think that manifested in the, some of them, my husband's like, why are you upset with my driving? And he was a great driver. Right. And that went away after it. It's like, oh, it's done. It happened. So that was interesting. And then, I noticed before, my husband would talk to his mom, almost every Sunday or on the weekend. And I was in the kitchen cooking, and he'd always, hang up by saying, I love you, Mom. But I was stunned right before this happened. I was cooking in the kitchen, and he said it in such a way with such pause and distinction that I stopped what I was doing, because he says, Mom, I love you. And I went to the living room. I said, is everything okay? And he goes, oh yeah, everything's fine. And that was the last time he spoke to her. I think in his being, it was coming out in a way that sounded different. I think his soul knew. And then with Jack, Jack would always give me all the list of what he wants for Christmas with the codes, and they were always more expensive than anything. Like, I want this computer gaming chair, and you're like, what planet are you on? You're going to get a $400 chair. And he hadn't given me any Christmas list that year. And I said, hey, Jack, do you have a Christmas list? He goes, I don't need anything. And I was stunned because I'm like, my mercenary son is saying he doesn't need anything. Like, he loves stuff, right? And that was interesting for me. And I think his soul knew he didn't need anything. So that was interesting for me, the leading up to, and when I reflect on it, that I think their souls knew. Now, what else did you want me to address on that? Moving forward on oh, I can't hear you.
There we go. Sorry. I think I muted and then unmuted. I unmuted and then muted. I loved for parents to know, because I don't know, it helped me so much when we just know that it's not like we just got dealt this hand. I believe that there's such a bigger picture. It's all part of the plan. And our kids know, and I felt like, of course, you never really think that this could happen to you, or I didn't, but just little things like you were talking about the last Christmas, Tyler's last and the last New Year's Eve, where he was physically with us, because I say he's always with us, but he was always out with his friends, big parties, and he just out of the blue that year said, Mom, because I was having a few friends over for a party, I'm just going to stay home with you, and I'm just going to invite a few friends. And then he had posted, like, nothing better than New Year's Eve with Mom and Pops. And that was, it's like they know. And he never, so I just wanted you to, let parents know that I believe that there's nothing that we can do to change, their destiny, the outcome. But then I wanted you to address, your entire community. You had, obviously, it just shows how many, even with so many, hard things in the world, how many amazing people are there to lend a hand. And I always say helping others is so healing, and helping ourselves, especially when we're on this journey. But maybe talk a little bit about all of the mediums. Suzanne Giesman, you had that reading. She actually would help you. She actually came out with her husband and your friend Allison, what she said, and your friend Catherine. Just maybe go through and tell everybody what helped you on this search for your son, because I know how important it was for you to find him.
Sure. So imagine it's a 30 square mile area, daunting, piles everywhere. So we were looking for needle in the haystack. We were always looking for both kids, both baby Lydia and Jack. And I had a core team, about 7 people. One was a local intuitive in Santa Barbara. Suzanne was in the hospital, my friend who had been trying to get a reading with Suzanne, but Suzanne, she's so in demand, right? It was going to take a while. She wrote Suzanne and said, my friend really needs your help. Her son's missing. She's had this catastrophic experience, losing everything, her house, her husband, her dog, everything. Can you remove my name from the list and get her on? And so kindly, Suzanne did. And I think it was about 3 months after, because I had to be out of the hospital and everything. And I did my first reading with her, which was so helpful, because I got to hear that my husband and my son were okay. And that gave me so much peace. And then, Suzanne's, despite her notoriety, is very humble. And she's like, I said, can you help with clues? We're trying to find, these two children. She's like, I don't know if I can, but if I get anything, I'll help. And so I remember, I had just come out of the shower, my phone rings, and she's like, I'm in Hawaii. I just got a message from Jack. Look for this when you're out. And it was fascinating where she had us go, right? Because we had 30 square miles, and both Suzanne's and some of the other mediums, they got us narrowed down to about a 500-yard radius to look, which was fascinating and so tremendously helpful. And then they were out doing, she was doing one of her conferences in San Diego, and then she was driving north with Ty. She goes, I'm going to be driving through Santa Barbara. She goes, I'd like to walk the area with you guys. I said, great. So she kindly came out, walked the area, and really got a sense in this one area, which was very helpful. And then I had her come to dinner to meet the Sacred Search team. And so she was, I always felt a phone call away. And I am forever in her debt of her trying to help, a grieving mother trying to find her son's remains and the remains of another little girl. And then I had a couple other folks, one gal, Catherine Weisenberg in Santa Barbara, who could kind of just, she can write down. It's not automatic writing. It's almost like the bat phone. You can kind of have a conversation. You can imagine my first question to Jack was, because I said, can I ask him questions? After he says, hi, Mom, I'm okay. I'm okay. Don't worry. I'm okay. I'm like, where are you? Where are you? Like, give me the GPS directions where you are. Give us a clue. And he goes, God said, he goes, Mom, I will be found. He goes, God told me I'll be found. I don't know when, I don't know where, but I will be found. And then what was so fascinating, I had different intuitives, right? Suzanne, Catherine, I had a few others. They didn't know one another, but fascinatingly enough, some of them came up with the exact same clue or very similar. Like one was Superman's going to be very important. Well, we found Jack's Superman Halloween costume in the side of the creek. We found his Superman figurine, getting us down from that 30 square mile, honing in to where we're going to look to find his remains. Other ones that was same was 33 is very important. So 33, I'm near, 33 is very important. So we would look at all the addresses that had a 33 in them, right? And what we came to learn is I thought it was all very literal, right? And then I kind of came to learn is some of these things aren't as literal, but they'll make sense after you find what you find. And then we searched for 3 years. So you got to imagine, we went out about every 2 weeks. It got pretty, you got hopeful, and then you found nothing, right? But then just when we needed it, excuse me, we would find jolts of hope that surfaced. For example, I make quilts, and I made my husband a beautiful quilt about a year before the tragedy that had a silhouette of my husband and son on it for their first scuba dive. And he took that during the fire evacuations. He took our wedding portrait and he took the quilt, and that warmed me up that my husband took those things that meant so much in case the house burned down. Well, one day as we were kind of losing hope and steam, guess what we find? We found a 50-pound clump of a quilt that was packed with mud, and we open it up, and that's the quilt that I had made my husband. And that was kind of the jolt, like, keep going, keep going. We found, some of my husband's ties. Rob Lowe came to help. He called, and he was doing a documentary on the mudslide. And I said, really don't need to talk about the mudslide anymore, Rob, but I do need help finding 2 young kids, that need to be found. And he goes, I'm in. So he comes over, picks up a shovel, and he's like, why do you keep looking? This has been like 2 years. Why do you keep looking? And Rob was digging in the sidewall of the creek. And within 30 to 40 minutes, he found my husband's poker chips. He found a clump of his silk ties. And then he found my husband's Red Sox jersey. And Rob said, I know why you keep looking. Because if he could find that within 40 minutes, we could find some of these kids, right? And so that was just fascinating that we would get these hits, or we'd found like a little porcelain Christmas ornament. I'd gotten one. It was a Lenox, and it was my husband's aunt, and it was a train. And the first part of the train said my husband's name, Dave, and then it said Kim, and then it said Jack, and then the caboose was my daughter. Well, another day when we were looking, we had search dogs out there. I mean, we use science, search dogs, everything, an anthropology department. And we found, because the dogs alerted saying there's human remains here, there's human remains. And this was kind of in the area that Suzanne had got us toward. And what we didn't find what we were looking for that day, but we found that Lenox porcelain train that had my husband's name on it without a scratch. How does it go 300 yards, 400 yards from the original place in the attic in a Christmas ornament box, and survive alone with massive boulders the size of cars, broken glass from all the houses that were destroyed, shards of glass, down 100-year-old trees, not a drop. So there was real moments that our jaws were dropping, and some of the folks on my sacred search team said, Kim, you have got to write about this, because they knew of the intuitives I was working with. And I said, here's what, I call her Navy Suzanne. Here's what Navy Suzanne says. Here's what, Catherine says. Here's what, Maritza says. And so they kind of knew the clues, and then the clues would kind of show up. Like we got like broken teacup. We found that. Catherine got red falcon, right? And she got that clue. And we go out this one day, and there is a statue of a red falcon that's almost to your thigh level on one of the properties right by the creek. And we're like, that is fascinating, right? So the clues that we were getting, Superman, we found those, broken teacup, we got one purple umbrella, and that's where I learned it wasn't literal sometimes, because I was thinking, okay, it's a purple umbrella, right? Like you put when it rains. They go, could be a purple flower that looks like an umbrella. It'll make sense once you find what you're looking for. Then it's all going to come together. So I really, in the search, we used, ground penetrating radar. We had canine search dogs. We brought in search dogs that are historical dogs that went to look for Amelia Earhart in the South Pacific, because they can get on older bodies with just the bone. And they're looking for Thomas Jefferson's brother at Monticello. And we brought in regular search dogs that smell the flesh, right? So we brought in that. Then we had the university at a top 10 ranked university, a forensic archaeologist. And she and her students were out with little brushes and all their high expensive radar, looking for things, and analyzing things. They had this special gun, which if they pointed at it, like say they pointed this special high-tech gun at a chocolate chip cookie, it would tell you exactly what's in that chocolate chip cookie, how much brown sugar, how much vanilla, how much salt, how much flour. So if they pointed it at a specimen, they'd say human bone, it's got the elements of human bone in it, right? So we used a lot, and it was the mix. It was the mix of the science, right? The anthropology and their science, and the anthropologist, interesting, she always wanted the clues from the intuitives. She goes, I don't discount any of that. She goes, I want them all. And I want what you, the mom, feel, because in your DNA, it's going to filter for you. We found a fascinating thing, which I knew was Jack. It was the Valentine's Day, the first Valentine's Day. Well, the second one, right? The first one, the tragedy happened in January. So the first one, I was still in the hospital. But 404 days later, that next Valentine's Day, I'm in the car being driven to LAX with my daughter. And one of the other survivors texted me because Montecito had put on a lost and found website because they were finding stuff from the 62 homes that were obliterated in the mud. So if someone said, here's a little statue I found, whose is it, right? Even though it's damaged, people could get it back, and that meant something. And so I got a text in the car saying, someone just posted an ultrasound and it has your name on it on the lost and found page. And I'm like, ultrasound, what are you talking about? So on Valentine's, when I find out what it is, it was the ultrasound of my son Jack in my belly when I was, I think, 5 months pregnant.
Isn't that amazing
And it
how
was in
hard they
perfect
work to
condition.
help us?
And what was fascinating, this ultrasound on that thin paper, they found it on the beach. It had been in the element in a little, 3-ring binder plastic sleeve,
Mm-hmm.
wedged between rocks outside at Butterfly Beach in Montecito, California for 404 days. And someone finds it in perfect condition and I get it on Valentine's Day. I'm like, thank you, Jack.
Yes, there's definitely no coincidences. And I think the kids, and they knew how important it was for you to find them, and they weren't going to, they were going to be there to help you for sure. And I know Jack was there. I know that, he definitely led the way. And you talked about some Reiki, and do you do Reiki? Do you meditate? Do you connect? Have you worked to connect with your husband and your beautiful son?
Yeah, so what I've done is I went to one of Suzanne's courses that she was doing. My friend Marcia, who had tried to first connect me with Suzanne, and then I knew her through her, trying to help. She was doing a course in San Diego. I said, well, I'll go to that, see if I can learn this stuff too. So I went to that. And I'm certainly not perfect at it, but I'm much more aware, I think, because of my experience and being open to it. I do a lot of different things for my healing. I lost half my family overnight, very violently and tragically. And so I've invested in myself in a lot of healing because I know I've needed it and I know my daughters needed it. So I've done Reiki, I've done somatic touch therapy. I do EMDR, which is this tapping modality for trauma. And I can tell you I think no one thing has been the silver bullet, but for me, the writings and the intuitive connections, Catherine does a lot of writings for me. She just did one last week for me. Again, I wanted to see what, I'm ready to start my next chapter, right? Moving forward. And I had some questions to ask my husband and Jack about that. And I think the intuitive writings for me have been so fundamentally healing because I really understand that they are alive and well, and they're doing things. They're still growing as a soul, right? But they're still
Absolutely.
looking out for me. My daughter's abroad right now in Europe doing a program with her university, and I know they're there making sure she's safe when this mama kind of feels nervous with her daughter that far away.
Absolutely. And it is amazing because we do all have that ability to connect with our kids and, automatic writing. And I feel like I went, and I've always said this, that before Tyler passed, I really didn't believe in anything. I just, as the older I got, the less faith I had. And yet he came on so strong. And now I can hear him all day long talking to me. And I'm always, it just like if he was here, I even said to him one time, because, we know that they evolve and they grow, but of course they still have their personalities. And I even said to him one day, I want your personalities. So talk to me the way you would talk to me when you were here. So he does. I'll hear, chill out, mom, calm down, slow it, but it's funny. So I do love that
Yeah.
we continue that relationship. I think it's been so important in my healing and so many parents that I've talked to. How is Lauren doing? Because I'm sure it's hard on the siblings, and then she experienced, oh my goodness, that poor baby, she experienced so much being buried under that.
Yeah, I mean, she was for 6 hours pushing on the side walls of her entombment and it not budging. And then she heard rescuers, and when she yelled, they couldn't hear her. And she heard them go away. I mean, just the level, it's called complex PTSD because it was sustained so long in the nervous system. And she has worked so hard. If you met her, you would say a beautiful, cheerful young lady. And she has worked so hard to get there. In the Audible, I just did the Audible of the book, and she asked to read her part of being buried alive. And it's pretty powerful. And what you hear in her too is I think she knows she was spared for a reason. There is no reason why she and I should have survived with car-sized boulders, the house being obliterated. It was a 30-foot wave that hit our house. Just, and we did. And her pocket of air happened to be in front of her nose and mouth. The pocket of air didn't end up by her kneecap or her belly button. It was where she needed it, with a tiny hole out to the outside for fresh air. And so I think she really knows she was meant to be spared. And now in her university, she's very interested in psychology. And she's been told by some of the professors, are like, the class will, they'll ask the question like, so what happens to the human body when you're, under threat or high stress in a traumatic situation? Does your temperature go up or down? And most of the classes go, it's going to go up. And Lauren raises her hand. She goes, no, it goes down. Like, she has so much wisdom from what she's gone through, and people, some of the people she's worked with said, you really could do this stuff because she's worked so hard. And she'll be working the rest of her life. Like, I'll be working the rest of my life on this. It was a pretty daunting experience.
Oh, I'm sure. And it's amazing when there's, we've suffered having our kids transition to the other side. It's amazing how our perspective changes. And I'm sure, of course, with you, and you also went through so much in addition to everything, all the pain and this, and you must have been terribly frightened. I can't even imagine. But I believe that it opens our perspective. And I always say, we're here to help. And your daughter, you say wants to be in psychology. She's already learned, she already knows that that's what she wants to do. Psychologists help. You're helping. You are, telling your story, and you are talking about how our kids are still here with us, and how, the proof of how they helped you on that search, even though it took such a long time. So I love that. And then Lauren, and I had told you earlier, I saw her on the Ellen interview with you, and she's such a beautiful girl. She tell her how she loves to sing, and she sang.
Yeah, so I think, you never know, some of the paths that life's going to take. And she was in musical theater. So she was training for the role of Fantine in Les Miserables, which is the famous song, I Dreamed a Dream, and she sang that while buried alive to keep herself sane, which, if you listen to the words, is unbelievably poignant. But afterwards, when she was rescued, and the world saw her rescue. So if you Google the mudslide, the image is my daughter being pulled out. And people were incredulous. Like, how could this human have survived that pile? Because there was 20 feet of mud, a car, an electrical transformer, part of a roof on top of her for 6 hours. And it took them 2 hours to get her out because of the gas explosion. They had to use hand tools, not power tools. And so they filmed her coming out, and that was shown around the world. And so all of a sudden, when they knew that she sang, there was fundraisers. And they said, Lauren, would you consider singing after she got out of the hospital? And she said, I'll do. And so she did a teen sing for Santa Barbara, and it raised $75,000 for a disaster relief center. And Kenny Loggins helped co-produce it. And she sang Defying Gravity from Wicked, right? And that was poignant. And it moved people to tears. And then she sang Rise Up on Ellen, and sang with David Foster at the Kick-Ass Bash that raised $1 million for first responders. And when people hear her sing, knowing that this girl was like Phoenix rising, coming out of her entombment, and to hear and I'm her mother, right? So I'm gonna say she's a good singer. She truly is a beautiful singer. And it's beautiful because you know what she went through, and that she was on a Verizon commercial, Super Bowl commercial. and they were going to pay her $5,000. And she says, I don't want that. Give it to the Unity Shop for their disaster relief. So she didn't take a dime. And that was her giving back, I think, of, she was given the gift of a beautiful voice. And she sang with Brad Paisley, she sang with Katy Perry. She sang at a sold out show with Katy Perry. Lauren sang the first verse to Firework before Katy came on, right? So she's had these really incredible experiences, but it was all for fundraising, and she wanted to be part of that because she saw how much the community and the people helped her and me to help heal, and the importance of helping one another and healing. I think she's really learned that. And I know whatever she does in life, that's going to be a real thread for her.
Absolutely. And I loved that, that she just wants to help, and that's amazing. The title, the beautiful title, Where Yellow Flowers Bloom. Maybe talk about, I know you said your daughter helped help with the title, but how, maybe talk about how that title like ties into your book, and
Sure.
what inspired it.
Yeah, so we were looking for, what do you name your book? And for me, the Sacred Search team said, you've got to write down all this stuff. The clues were just fascinating. The whole approach of the search, and then, what ended up happening at the end, was just utterly fascinating. And so we're thinking of, I was going to call it Finding Jack, right? And then my daughter came over and she goes, and what had happened is, well into the 3 years, I got a call when I was cooking dinner for Lauren, and it was the professor. Her and the students were out doing a dig. And she says, Kim, we found bone. And I go, you sure? And she goes, yeah, I'm pretty sure. And what was fascinating is because 62 homes were destroyed and plumbing was destroyed and people's garages were destroyed, what was in that mud was really contaminated. It had arsenic, and the professor said, nothing should grow in this dirt. Yet the pile that some of Jack's remains were found in was covered by beautiful yellowed wildflowers. And so the students, after, I got the call about finding some bone, clipped those flowers, and she put them in a vase and drove them to my house. And she said, we want you to have these flowers. She said, life found a way. And I said to her, no, love found a way. Jack was really trying to help me find him. And one of the intuitives had said, yellow flowers will be very important. So it's so fascinating how there's no coincidences. It was all a path. And so Lauren said, why don't you call the title Where Yellow Flowers Bloom? And so I titled the book Where Yellow Flowers Bloom, which is really, I think, a great metaphor for something so tragic and awful. There shouldn't have been any beauty there, but there was. And I think that's what I've seen in this. I wouldn't wish what happened to me on anyone. However, I will say that there's been silver linings. There's been beauty that's come out of this, right? I'm a different person now. I've evolved. I'm much more emotive. I was corporate Kim running a $1 billion brand in a Fortune 500 company, right? I'm a softer, warmer person, and the relationship I have with my daughter is just, I always had a good relationship with her, but it's at such a deep, richer level because we've had this shared experience. So I would say, and I never thought I'd ever write a book. I never finished reading a book, gosh, like elementary school or high school. I just flipped through it. And then I wrote a book, and that was so healing for me. And my goal is that it helps other people. And people have really said, if they've lost a child or gone through a really traumatic experience, it's been a very hopeful book for them. And I hope maybe that's why I was spared a little bit, right? What can I do to give back because I was spared?
I love that. Yes. And I loved when you said the silver lining, because that's one of the things we always talk about. And of course, Elizabeth, who is, I always say, or my earth angel, everybody's earth angel. She always says, that look for the collateral beauty. That movie was out years ago, and there's just always gifts. There's always
That's a beautiful way to
collateral
say it.
beauty. And for me, one of the things I always say is, well, I have zero fear of death, and I was a hypochondriac. So that in itself is liberating because now I can go with the flow and appreciate everything, the small things. And also knowing that, life is like the blink of an eye. And I know that my son is right here. And before I know it, we're all going to be together again. And that just is, people, my grandparents who I just thought I'd never see them again. Now I'm thinking, oh, party when I get to the other side. They're all having a great time, and we're here to finish what we need to do and help. That is
Well, yeah,
number
that's
one.
it's funny, as I was getting older, I was turning 58, and I'm like going, some people get bummed as you get older. And I'm like, I'm fortunate. My husband got to 49. I am so grateful I got to 58. And then it's a win-win because I'm a day closer to seeing them again.
Right.
Right. So I want to embrace the life that I have now and be grateful for it. And no, I'm just a day closer where we're going to be totally
Exactly.
reunited. So it's like, sure, do I miss them physically? Absolutely. Absolutely.
Of course.
But I know they're around me, and I know they're growing and evolving as a soul, and they're still connected with us. And they graduated, they finished what they were supposed to do on Earth.
That's right. We still have work to do, and they're Elizabeth again. I always quote her, but because these things were so helpful early in my journey, she said, our kids are home and we're still in school. And it's true. We are still in school. Well, it's just so beautiful, everything that you've said. Thank you so much. And I want to see if we have any questions. If not, let me see. If not, then I'm just going to have you finish off with some closing comments. And maybe, do you have a website? We can have Lynn type it in the chat box for us.
Sure. Well, thank you all, and thank you for joining. And I we're all part of the same club, and I think it's nice that we all support one another. I think that's what we're here to do. So thank you. I'm honored that you joined. My website is kimcantin.com. It's like a tin can, Cantin, Cantin with an IN. The book is on Amazon, where yellow flowers bloom. I had an artist do it and put in an image of Jack and the coastal oaks that are similar in Montecito. And it's on Amazon, and there's Audible, and the Audible one, my daughter reads her part about being alive, buried alive, and then I read the other part. So that's an interesting dynamic. I didn't think it would be that interesting until I heard it complete with her voice in it.
I'm sure very powerful. And I don't want to interrupt, but I'm going to let you finish. But there is a question before.
Sure.
Somebody is asking, was the baby ever found? I know you said that there was the baby.
Yeah, so baby Lydia was 2, and the professor, the forensic archaeologist at a top 10 university, she determined that when you're young, our bones aren't firm calcium, they're softer cartilage, right? And so that becomes one with the earth sooner. So Lydia is one with the earth right now, and how I understand it with her mother who survived, that based on her faith, that gave some peace to her. But we always tried to look for her. We might one day they might find maybe the pajamas she was in, but she's one with the earth.
Yes, that is true. And then Sherry, sweet Sherry, is asking, did the first 3 years when you were looking for Jack feel like you were navigating life in 2 separate worlds? If so, when did the 2 worlds blend for you?
Oh, what a lovely question.
Mhm.
Yeah, because I was trying to look, my house washed away. Every single thing I owned was gone. I was injured. My daughter was injured and trying to get back into school. So I was just trying to stabilize for her, get a new house, furnish a new house, get a new toilet bowl plunger, get a new needle and thread, get new, everything, passports, all that stuff. So I was doing heavy lifting on the stabilization of trying to make a life for my daughter and I, right? Which had a lot of heavy lifting, all the insurance stuff. They wanted me to itemize, replacement value of my son's stuff. Like they go out and buy his underwear again, so you get the full price. I'm like, I'm not going to go out and buy underwear that my son, who's never going to use it, just to, it was a nightmare. And then on parallel path, doing the search, right? And that was just a mission of the heart. I just knew in my heart he didn't go to the ocean. I knew it. And I think every mom would do the same thing, right? We don't give up on our babies.
That's for sure. And then there's another, let me just tell you some of the comments. Debbie is saying, I have your book and can't wait to read it. Gayla says, thank you so much for sharing. Phyllis, I just ordered your book. Thank you for sharing your story. Mara and John, love your book. You're an inspiration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
They read it in about 3 days. It's a fast read because you're trying to find out what happens in the search.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Kim. This is wonderful.
Thank you.
So again, where the yellow flower, or where yellow flowers bloom. So it's the cover is beautiful. So
thank you.
I appreciate you being with us. Thank you, everyone. If you want to unmute and say goodbye, and thank you to Kim, that would be lovely.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for being here.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.
Take care.
Carol.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.